Hey, it's TDA and welcome to Old World. This is probably one of the most underrated 4X games available at the moment. It takes all the best elements from games like Civilization and Humankind, adds in a few grand strategy elements to make it even more amazing, and then adds in a couple of new features to make it even better. In short, I think this game is amazing. In this series, I'll be explaining the game as I play, so this serves as a bit of a mix between a tutorial and a let's play. If you're one of my regular viewers, I recommend watching the video linked above to see why I think you might really enjoy a game like this, even if it's something you haven't tried out or normally don't play. In a game like this, we always get to pick a nation and a leader and guide our people to greatness. Since Old World is completely set in the ancient era, we get access to nations like Rome, Egypt, Assyria, the Persia, etc., etc. Basically all the great nations from the ancient times. We will be playing as Persia because they start out with a very young unmarried leader, and that just makes it very convenient for tutorial purposes. But any of the nations are actually great to play, and each comes with their own strengths and weaknesses. As a little side note, for those of you who like min-maxing, you can actually pick your nation when you settle the first city as well. So that allows you to kind of go into the game, see what your situation is at your starting location, and then if you want to do that, pick a nation that kind of fits your environment. Now, I'm not going to do that because typically I just like dealing with what I'm given, but it's definitely something that I think is a very nice feature about this specific game. However, I'm going to be playing as the Persians on pretty much a normal difficulty. You can basically fine-tune a lot of things if you want. You can actually go to an advanced setup and tweak everything. I'm going to go and play on the standard settings, and I'm going to play on the strong difficulty, which is basically the last one before the difficulty is starting to ramp up and really give the AI advantages. So I recommend doing this difficulty or lower if you're playing one of your first games, and if you're less experienced with this type of game, you definitely want to start out maybe on the just or the good rather than one of the higher difficulties. And here we are in our first game. We start out with the Persians, like I said, with a pretty young leader. This guy is only like 26, and he's already king of our empire, although the empire is not really that big yet. We actually kicked our grandfather from its throne, his throne I should say, and it's this setup that I think just makes the early game really interesting as well, because it will be very different depending on the nation that you pick. Some start out with entire families already there, but in our case it's just going to be us and our grandfather, which doesn't really like us. He's quite upset with us, as you can see in the bottom left, and that is of course because we kicked him off his throne. As with most of these 4X games, you start out with a single settler and you're going to found your first city. But before we do that, let me quickly show you around the map. So we have resources here on the top. Might seem overwhelming, but it will make sense as you keep playing, and I will take care and explain things along the way. Basically, we have gold, we have food, we have iron, we have stone, we have wood, and we have orders, which I'll come to in a second. These are all things you can buy and trade, so if you have a lot of one but not enough of something else, you can probably get a good deal somewhere and trade them. We also have some science rate going on, which will allow us to get some more technology going. We have civics, which are basically meant to kind of improve our nation by enacting laws, taking religions, things like that. And then we have what they call training, which is basically a military currency which we use to upgrade our troops, get them more experience, get them specializations, things like that. And then last we have luxury, so if they are able to find any luxuries around, we can use them to gain some nice bonuses for our cities, use it to sell and trade, things like that. Now on the right hand side over here we have our family, and we have different ways of filtering, so we can look at everyone who's actually in our kingdom of importance. That will actually become a very long list along the way. We can see what's up with the religions, and we can see other nations, and of course there's not really anything going on here, so that will expand nicely as we are playing. Now on the bottom left over here we have a couple of interesting things as well. The first thing I want to note is the undo button. This is a turn-based game, but for some reason all of these games, if you make a mistake, you kind of have to reload the start of the turn or things like that, which can be really annoying if you make a mistake every now and then and have to then reload, or actually find out that there wasn't an autosave or anything like that, and you're basically stuck with your mistake, even if it wasn't intentional. So having an undo button, if I, for example, move my unit, I said if I move my unit, I cannot move my unit. Oh yeah, I can. Never mind. It's not letting me move away from the city side. But let's say that I didn't want to move there. I can press the undo button and it's right back where it was and didn't cost me anything. Now, when you are starting to move around your units, you'll notice very quickly the other unique feature about this game, and that is the orders. We get 8 orders right now per turn, or at least we will get 10 later on. And that limits the amount of moves we can do per turn. Now, initially, you're not going to have many units, it's not going to be a problem, but especially in the mid and late game, that actually will require you to prioritize if you're going to move your army, if you're going to move your workers, things like that will really matter, rather than normally in these games, you can just move all your units, which actually gets really tedious if you have quite a lot of them. So I think this is a nice way to make the game a little bit more strategic, and also a bit less tedious when you get to the later game. Now then, this last number over here is legitimacy. This is actually kind of a way to keep track of how well you're doing. Everything you do in terms of exploring and getting some achievements done and stuff like that, in terms of expanding our nation, etc., will actually give us our legitimacy, and the more we get of that, the more orders we start producing, but we'll also get things like reputation between families and other nations and things like that. So it's actually really useful, useful way to track how you're doing. Now, there's another way to track how well we're doing, and that's this score in the top left over here, where you can see we have 0 out of 55 victory points. If we ever get to 55, we instantly win the game. If we get to at least half of this amount and have significantly more than anyone else, we'll also instantly win the game, which again is a very nice feature because it doesn't force you to play out the entire game if it's very much clear that you're already winning anyway. But yeah, that's really more towards the end of the game. Now, is there anything else of importance that I have missed? No, I don't think so. So let's go and start finding our first city. Now, when it comes to founding cities, there's a couple of other things we need to go through, and apologize, there's a lot of exposition early on in this game, because you do need to know kind of what's going on in order for this to make sense. So normally, in a lot of these 4X games, you can just place your city wherever, but as you can see with these big bold letters over here, in this game you have city sites, which kind of limit where you can place your cities. Now, if that sounds annoying to you, I promise you it's really not, because again, it adds a very strategic feature to the game, and we're not completely locked into this specific site, but we do need to place our city on one of these urban sites that you can see over here. So these are basically the 5 places that we can pick our city. Now, as you can see, as I'm moving my mouse over these sites, you can kind of get a preview of the borders of our town, depending on where we place it. Now, you can also see that I made a highlight on the bottom right over here to show the resources. So we can kind of see where the special resources are on the map that we want access to, because that will give a huge production bonus to our city if we can get access to them. Now, as it turns out, if I place my city over here in the corner, we'll actually get all 4 of these special resources. So I have 3 sheep actually over here, as well as 1 game. And placing it here actually also makes sure the border is pretty close to the mountains over here, and those are typically very good to build some mines and quarries and things like that. Now, it doesn't seem like we have any hills over here, it's all flat. You can see the terrain on the bottom right on the tooltip over there. So that's kind of a shame. Hills are pretty nice for some reason, and we could actually expand more in this direction and then be close to this hill over here. But no, I think we'll just have to do with this location. So I'm gonna move my settler over here. Now, it's not as simple as just founding a city, because we can actually found a family capital. So in this game, you will get access to 4 different families, but you can only ever have 3 of them active at the same time. So basically, the first 3 cities typically that you found will each come from a different family, And each family has different attributes. So in this case, for example, we have the Sassanid Riders. They get a training production bonus for all of their cities. Their cities are always connected, which means they're always connected to the trade network, which is very useful in terms of getting the production up and running and getting some other bonuses and things like that. So connected is a good thing, just to remember that for now. They are actually also able to build mounted units in this game, even if we don't have access to horses, camels, or elephants. And their mounted units are also better because they start with a free promotion in the form of Saddleborn. Now, just to show you another really nice feature of this game, because I can imagine that all of these things don't really make sense to you. I mean, what the hell is the Saddleborn promotion? Now, what you can do is actually press Shift, go into this tooltip, and then click on the next thing. And then you can get access to the next tooltip over here, as long as we keep pressing Shift. So now we know that Saddleborn means that we get a 25% attack strength bonus if we are flanking. And then you wonder, what's flanking? Well, you can actually press Shift again, and then it explains flanking. Flanking occurs while attacking an enemy unit while a friendly unit on the opposite side. So this is a very good way of just making this overflow of information really accessible at any time. Now, you really do not have to know all of this up front, but it does make it very easy to kind of figure out what you're doing as you are playing the game. Now, all of this is not really relevant for now, because we are mainly worried. Let me quickly click this away. We are mainly worried about the main properties of this family. So again, like I said, some military bonuses, some mounted units, and we'll actually get an additional scout once we settle this city initially. What else do we have? We have the hunters, the Miranid hunters over here. Again, we get a training bonus, so a kind of militaristic approach as well, but now we get a bonus for ranged units. We also get a bonus for camps and nets, and they will actually provide us with a plus 100% output. Now, we do have game over here that we can improve with a camp, as you can see. So that means that if we would have the hunters improve this specific game unit over here, we would actually get a lot of additional production just from having the hunters over here. So that we would not get if we make this a rider city, for example. And just to wrap it up, we have the clerics as well, which will allow us to instantly found a religion. So that's pretty interesting as well. They are pretty good at keeping their cities happy. The sad smiley face over there, the -2, means that they're actually very good at keeping people happy. And basically they are all about religion. That's not something I'm really interested for in my first city. So yeah, we'll just have to go on to the next one. And we are now looking at the statesmen. And the statesmen actually get +1 order per year for every city. That does add up really quickly. And if they're happy with us, they actually provide us with a civics bonus as well in each city. So that's actually a pretty decent thing to have. It will really make their cities really powerful and generally speaking, make our empire more powerful. But I don't necessarily think that's the best pick for this specific city, because I do kind of want to leverage, I think, the hunters over here, because we will get access to stronger ranged units, and the camp bonus is definitely going to be useful over here, so we might as well make sure that we get one family that we are making use of their special abilities. So we click this, we found the city, and then we also get to pick our first research. Now, there's a lot of different ways to go, but generally speaking, divination helps you pick up shrines that will allow you to develop paganism, which is another kind of a local religion that won't spread to other nations, but can spread within your own borders, and that allows you to build shrines, which give all kinds of nice bonuses that we'll get to once they become irrelevant. We can also go for administration, which allows us to build a granary, which produces growth, which I'll get into in a moment. And we also have stone cutting over here, which is actually recommended by the game, as you can see from the star, which will allow us to build a quarry, and that will in turn allow us to start producing some stone. So I think this is a pretty good first option. Stone is always useful in early game. As you can see, we are currently using more stone than we are producing, so we definitely want to start producing some stone sooner rather than later. Now we have our first city. You can see a couple of things happening. So we're now inside the city in the building screen. And it's really interesting because in this game, production works a little bit different than it works in a lot of other games. So we have growth, which is basically allowing us to produce civilian units like settlers and workers. This is not the same as food, by the way, although we do need food as well to build a settler. But the speed of the production is determined by growth. So this means that, for example, making sure we get access to this game will give us access to +2 growth and +10 food, which will allow us to produce civilian units faster, but also get more food, which we can either sell or use for other things. Food is also used to produce citizens, which you can then use to build specialists, and that will come into play later on. We also have training, which is basically the military production in this city. If we don't use the training that we're currently producing in the city, it will go to our total pool over here. And civics is used to basically provide us with cultural aspects to our city, so we can do some repeatable type of projects, which will give us a one-time bonus, but also add a permanent modifier to our city. So for example, the festival will give us some growth. It will reduce discontent a little bit, but also give us a +1 culture per year. And then culture is the last one. That's only going to be used down here. The more culture you have, the more evolved your city will be. You will actually need to develop your city in order to build certain buildings in your city. So it's very easy to neglect culture and then later find out that the other nations did not neglect it and they have way stronger cities than you have. But you also get a default +2, so it will develop itself eventually. It's going to take a very long time if you don't take some specific action towards improving that. Then last but not least, we can set a governor for the city that we'll get to in a moment. Because the governor is picked from all the available people that you have in your city, depending on the attributes they have. And as you can see, we are no longer alone in the world with our grandfather. We also have these 3 people over here, which spawned because we founded our first city. And these are all part of the Myronid family. So we founded a Myronid city, and basically this city is led by this family. And we have a family leader, which I don't think we can see yet. No, it does say we have the Myronid family over here, but we don't know who the leader is. It's probably going to be one of these 2 people. I assume these are married to each other. You can actually find out by clicking on them. It'll tell you some more information. Right now it doesn't really tell us anything other than their statistics. But yeah. These are probably married to each other or not, I don't know actually. And there is a child in here as well. And everyone will age, so at some point maybe one of these passes away, and then this child might become the new leader of this family. Now, you don't have to worry too much about dealing with the families initially, but it does come into play later on. Going back to our city for a moment, we can set a governor in here, and right now the only option that we have as a governor is our leader. And typically it's pretty good to have your leader as a governor because it will also allow your leader to start gaining some experience. As you can see, he will be gaining 4 experience per year, so it will take him 25 turns to gain a level, but still it's more experience than he would be gaining otherwise. In addition to that, he is going to generate 2 growth for our city, which will help us produce that settler that's already queued up. So you can see we have a settler almost halfway completed already. The game knows that you're going to want to expand fast in the early game, so it kind of just does that for you. It already queues up a settler, and it's already halfway done when you build your first city. And on top of that, we'll get some military production here as well. And we are probably going to want to spend some time building another warrior or slinger at some point. So this is a pretty decent choice as a governor. Now, having your leader as a governor, it has some additional bonuses as well that might be coming to play later, because you can get events popping up that will give you bonuses or choices that you can make to basically get some more benefits or kind of specialize your empire. Now don't worry, we're almost done with the explaining and we'll get to actually playing the game. Well, we've already founded the city and made some important decisions. But we have 3 new units to talk about as well. So we have this worker over here, which is going to allow us to improve the environment in our within our borders. basically give us production bonuses and things like that. We'll have a slinger over here, which is a ranged military unit, which we can use to defend or maybe grab this city side over here, because if we park our unit on top of the city side, no one else will be able to take it unless they declare war on us. So that's a pretty steep price to pay for just settling a city. And we do want to make sure we find as many of those city sites as we can. Now we also have a scout, which is exactly what it sounds like. That is going to allow us to really quickly run around this area and find out where the other city sites are, where maybe other nations are, other tribes are, etc, etc. So this is really where we're going to spend most of our orders on in the first stages of the game. Now we only have 4 orders left because we already moved our settler and founded the city. So I want to make sure that we spend these orders as effectively as we can, and we are going to do that by building a camp on top of this game like we planned. As you can see, because we made this a hunter city and the hunters get plus 100% gains from camps, we get a massive plus 4 growth and plus 20 food just from building a single camp. Now this is going to cost us some lumber, wood, not entirely sure what they call it, wood, yep, and but we have plenty of that, so we can always get more because we have a lot of forest around. Now let's do that. Then we have 2 orders left, and we are going to have to move this scout. Now it's actually really interesting because we have these ancient runes on the map, and those will trigger an event. Now it's not always beneficial to rush instantly to the first rune that you see, because sometimes you need some resources for those events. As you can see, depending on what we would get, you don't always have those resources early on. So it's actually pretty safe to just let it sit here for a while and then see what you get later on. There's no rush to get to the things unless you expect someone else to grab them first. So that means I'm actually going to explore in this direction first, and we're probably going to go kind of make a little bit of circle around our initial area to scout for future sites. And hello, we already have barbarians over here. Now, barbarians are actually really interesting because you can see the urban area over here. Barbarians are always going to be parked on top of a city site. So having barbarians close by is not necessarily ideal, but we do know for sure that there's going to be a city site if we take out this camp. So investing a little bit in basically wiping them off the map sooner rather than later will allow us to settle yet another city. And that brings us to the end of the first turn, because we have no more orders left to spend, so we can't move any more units. We've covered all the basics of the game, and we actually already made some hugely important decisions. So if you got this far, you are pretty much ready to go and play the game. But I highly recommend that you follow me along for the couple of for this entire series, for that matter, just to get a real feel about how this game develops as you play, how the different systems interact with each other, and we actually do get a few new systems to talk about in the mid and late game. So, for example, we have this whole politics going on with the families later on. There's a couple of specific positions that we can have. We can marry, get a spouse, we can get an heir that we all have to work on. We can get ambassadors, chancellors, and spy masters, and that will give us a huge amount of new things that we can also do. Of course, we are going to have to expand the city. So next time around, I think we'll focus a little bit on the family aspects, the reputation aspects, as well as, of course, expanding to at least our first city site over here, and maybe thinking about where we are going to go next after that. So, if you're still here, you're awesome. Let me know in the comments if you actually played this game, if you think this game is interesting, if you have any suggestion or comments from me in order to make this more enjoyable for you. And in general, I would highly appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Once again, thank you for watching, and hope to catch you in the next one.